Please join me in welcoming the chair of TIP and VP of RAN Technology at AT&T, Rob Soni, where we are going to chat about the actual trends impacting the telecom industry, how these trends are being worked with and captured in the work of the TIP Telecom Infra Project, and particularly what we are going to see here and experience related to this at our annual event Fyuz 25, which takes place 3rd to 5th of November this year in Dublin, Ireland. Rob, great to have you with me today. I would want to start off by asking a really big question, and obviously, given we don't have much time, I'm sure you will capture the main topics and main trends. So what do you see this year, 2025, as being the major trends impacting our industry, telecom industry? Where would you put your bets?
I think, first of all, thank you for inviting me to join and sit with you and chat and talk a little bit about where both TIP is going, where AT&T is going, and a little bit about Fyuz. I'm very excited about the opportunities to meet with colleagues and partners in Ireland. Very excited overall about the event, very excited about what the progress we're making at AT&T, as well as the progress that TIP is making overall and moving the telco industry forward. And so you asked the question, what's important? What is really driving investment? What is really now driving interest? What are people engaged in? And what are the expense profiles being driven by? So I think we're not atypical in terms of a sort of 5G provider who's now trying to figure out how to leverage the best capabilities from 5G. How can we now begin to start to think about how does it offer differentiated connectivity? And this is a theme that goes not just in the wireless network, but also on the wired network as well. So differentiated connectivity is a big part of the story overall for the telco industry now. How do you provide the kind of service that you want, where you need it, whether it's an IoT-based service or a service for a robotaxi or a service for fixed wireless or a service for an enterprise customer over a wireline network. We know that differentiated connectivity is the underpinning story of where we're going in terms of trying to provide an opportunity for subscribers to get different experiences and also an opportunity for operators to monetize relatively large capacity that's now available from 5G networks. So that comes with it an implicit assumption that you start to migrate towards standalone, 5G standalone. But at the same time, I think we've been able to offer, wearing an AT&T cap for the moment, a variety of differentiated connectivity services without having full standalone capabilities. So we have differentiated connectivity for automotive, for IoT, for fixed wireless. We offer a service called Turbo that allows folks to opt into a better service if they want it. It elevates their experience across the board. We've been doing this without SA in place, without what people like to talk about, network slicing. But for us, really, it is finally about differentiated connectivity, which also allows us to offer differentiated services to first responders via FirstNet. So I think there's a lot going on across the industry now to say, how do you enable that? Well, the normal challenge we expect to see is if you add complexity to the network, how do you manage it? How do you operationalize it? How do you take care of it in the network? And so AI is a big part of that story, without overblowing it or saying, okay, this is the buzzword, hype word, we're in the peak of the hype cycle around AI. There's an incredible amount of investment energy, specifically around real practical things that we can do with AI. And so we're very focused, at least, and I know that a number of other operators are very focused on how can they really exploit AI, whether it's traditional AI and traditional learning algorithms, and how we do optimization or fault analysis or anomaly detection, or moving forward to energy savings and otherwise. We're not necessarily waiting for generative AI to change the world for us. But in many cases, we're already starting to leverage generative AI in the network itself, from every aspect to customer care to actually code generation for our apps that would run on top of an SMO platform.
Fantastic. There was a lot there, and I think a lot of these topics will, in one way or another, also be visible in the speeches, in the debates, discussions, as well as the vendors exhibiting their solutions at Fyuz. So maybe diving a little bit deeper in TIP and AT&T's engagement. You've been now chair for this year, and there's an increasing amount of AT&T experts engaged in TIP's work. Could you say a few words about how you see, from AT&T's point of view, the importance of TIP as a community, and in a way, how do you, based on what you just talked about of your kind of strategic directions, how do you feel you can impact, as one of the leading operators, the direction of the work that the community is undertaking?
It's a really good question, and I think we've seen a number of things emerge out of TIP that have been of value to us, and we continue to try to steer the things that matter as well in the key forums that are of interest to us, particularly on Open RAN, particularly on Open Wi-Fi, particularly on telco AI. We're really trying to make sure that the objectives of those groups are aligned with AT&T objectives, but also that we gain the value of interchange and discussions with other operators. Other operators provide unique perspectives about the journeys that they're on, the partners they're working with, and finally what's required in terms of upskilling and changing staff even to be moving forward to support the objectives we want. So I think this has been exciting for us to get involved, to be involved. We have product plans obviously around Open RAN. We've talked a lot about them. I haven't mentioned that too much, but we have a lot of things that are happening now. For us, I think the exciting part about the ORAN group itself and around RIA is that we start to see a strong focus on developing this sort of third-party ecosystem of applications that allows, ironically, a healthy set of ecosystem providers also enables operators to more efficiently develop their own apps. So having a platforming environment that is uniform actually creates the opportunities for us to more efficiently develop apps on a common platform, even potentially to license those apps to other operators in other parts of the world who might be interested in what we're doing with respect to whether it's anything from cloud orchestration and automation to energy savings or security and anomaly detection or even spectrum management. So all kinds of applications can now be rolled in. And so we look to try to make sure that the use cases that we are talking about and discussing with our fellow operator and vendors is to just make sure that they're relevant, that they're actually things that are sticking and have real business value for us in the network. So that's been exciting. Open Wi-Fi also gives us an opportunity to take a lot of the open principles that apply in other parts of the network and apply them directly to Wi-Fi. It gives us an opportunity to build a single framework for network management, and then it becomes somewhat easier for us to manage as we mix and match device types across the network itself. So we're very excited about where Open Wi-Fi is headed overall and what it will mean to us, especially in MDU deployments as we try to scale outwards on that. Telco AI is an exciting space for us. I think TIP has taken perspective about network AI as opposed to just purely focusing on the RAN or AI RAN. As RAN leader, I'm finding increasingly that the AI problems are not limited to the RAN, so they're across the network. And so for us, about enabling a service and a service type requires us to have intelligence that extends from the end to end of the network itself. So a lot of excitement overall about those groups in particular. OOPT, I think we had at least strategically decided years ago to go down the open ROADM path, but even that we see the benefit and the value that OOPT creates in terms of creating an ecosystem of providers that align with the open ROADM as well as the OOPT objectives.
Fantastic. And all those topics you referred to, the different project groups, their initiatives, and also the community members, both vendors and other operators, in addition to AT&T, who are exploring those technologies, will be very visible at Fyuz. So anybody interested in any of those topics should be there. So diving a bit deeper to TIP's flagship event, Fyuz. This is the third time we run Fyuz. We ran it twice in Madrid. Fourth time actually, twice in Madrid, once in Dublin, and now it's the fourth time again in Dublin. How you've been there now a few times, first as a presenter, then as a chair last year, as a featuring in multiple sessions and being part also of planning the event. Could you reflect a bit on the relevance and the importance of such an event for an organization like TIP? What are your thoughts?
So yeah, it's my fourth Fyuz. The first one I attended virtually. I got a lot of fun feedback from my friends and former colleagues as I had transitioned from a role at VMware directly into AT&T, and 3 weeks into AT&T, I was talking about the near real-time brick and the innovation we were doing together with Nokia on a giant screen. So my friends were joking with me. They said, "Well, we thought you left VMware. We're not going to see you for a while." In Madrid, and we see your face 20 feet high on the stage itself. I said, "Oh, that's nice. I didn't even know it was so big." But yeah, so Madrid was virtual the first year, in person the second year. And then, of course, Ireland last year. And then, of course, we're very excited about Ireland this year. First of all, Dublin is a great host city, an amazing place to spend time with colleagues. It's perfectly set up for easy interactions, so many places, pubs, restaurants where people can meet and greet and spend time with each other informally as well as formally in discussions about where they're going and partner, and how they can move forward and partner. Very accessible city, and that part is extremely well appreciated, I think, by the folks who attend. So, I think we kind of took over the city of Dublin last year, and I look forward to us kind of taking it over again this year. I could not go to a pub without running into people from the event, so it was nice. I took my wife out one night, and it was like, okay, can we get a break from the conference stuff and all? And as soon as we sat down, sure enough, oh,
Yeah.
there's 10 people from the conference are suddenly wanting to chat about one thing or another. So I think that it's a great opportunity, I think, for those kinds of informal interactions with key decision makers from operators. And that was the feedback we got quite consistently about last year's event. We
Yeah.
bring more operators here this year, new operators who are very active in the open area, as well as those that are very interested in driving community-based input, which is the primary vision and direction that we've set with TIP, that you've set with TIP. Being open, creating open architectures, creating an opportunity to pool resources on certification, on blueprints, on testing, as well as defining use cases that are common that drive that certification and testing, is a key objective overall for the team. And I think what it does is it takes some of the pressure off both the operators and vendors to try to do bilateral things, to try to get into an operator lab early with a product that may not be fully baked as they work through the IoT process. Frankly, we don't have the kind of time, even though we're a relatively large operator, to spend a lot of time in pre-integration work with vendors, whether it's an application running on a network management platform or it's a radio that would be integrating with somebody else's baseband. So TIP helps us essentially create those fronts where people can share requirements informally as well as formally to start to get to how can we consume assets in the network more readily. So I think this is something that we see directly as the tangible outcome in the participation. So we finally see it directly show up. I think there's a lot of work now, in particular on the application side. I mentioned it a couple of times already, but for us, this is really important because I think this is unlocked value that we can create in the network.
Yeah, no, I think although there are so many pubs in Dublin, you will always meet somebody in one of those. So I think for anybody planning to come, you will have ample opportunities to meet up with friends, colleagues, stakeholders, customers, you name it, in both at the venue, but equally importantly, off venue during the evenings or during the leisure time you might have. So one of the key themes of Fyuz will be certainly automation and AI. You talked a lot about it already. What would you expect, as the industry now moves forward 6 months from today or 5 months from today when we get together in Dublin? What would you expect to see or hear when other operators and vendors come together to talk about their plans on automation and AI? Anything particular you are looking or expecting?
Yeah, I think on the automation front, it's a hot topic, and unfortunately, automation doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. So this is actually where the value comes in collaborating with the other operators and the vendors to say, what are the automation use cases you're actually going after? So for me, when I wandered into AT&T 2 years ago, it looked like automation and automation was largely about ticket consolidation, fault consolidation, and correlation. And finally, not having to deal with the thousands of alarms that may not be critical or may be critical, in which case you need to do classic rule-based ways of determining whether something is important and needs to be elevated for a human interaction, or it's okay, something that is manageable. In which case, this gives the opportunity now to really dig deeper into this and think about what the extensions are and what the framework should be, how to automate, what types of automation should be put in place that is practically useful to an operator. We can talk about AI and agents really being present in the network to help us solve the problems that we have with respect to fault analysis or anomaly detection in the network and taking immediate action. But I think, step one is just to be able to observe it, and step two is to start thinking about taking an action. Admittedly, the operator will move a bit slowly about trying to immediately do, hey, we're going to have an unsupervised agent now take an action based on an action or something that it was observed in the network that was predefined or it detected on its own. So those kinds of things are very interesting to us overall as problems and problem statements. But we know that the operator community has to build confidence that these kinds of things are trustworthy, that these kinds of things are secure, and that we can actually realize them. So I think this is the really opportunity to say, how do we create uniform postures with the vendors to say these are the kind of solutions we need, these are the kind of use cases we're going to start with, and these are the use cases that we look forward to progressing to. So really helping together to work on a crawl, walk, run strategy of how do you automate your network and move from level 2 to level 3, level 4, whatever automation target that you prefer in your network. And I think different operators will choose different targets deliberately because they won't be comfortable to turning over the network to some automaton or whatever agent.
That was kind of well stated, a very complex domain that you kind of summarized in a particularly good way. And I think you kind of highlighted both the opportunity, but also some of the challenges and questions that need to be solved. And indeed, those topics and those kind of items you mentioned will definitely be high on the agenda, both in terms of experiences, ideas, hopefully some proof points that certain things have moved forward. We'll see how far we are. But those of you who are interested in that topic, which I think you should if you work in this industry, you should really look forward to learning more about them. So coming back a little bit to the pub question, but on a serious note. So obviously coming to an event like this is a lot about people meeting each other, using the time together to take things forward. What would be your expectations and AT&T's expectations from Fyuz 25 in terms of partnerships, ecosystem alignment? Are there some particular things you're looking forward, or of course in general, how much do you expect you can take that type of discussion forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll be very, very busy. Obviously, we want to participate as much as possible in the group discussions that take place because I think group learning is important. But there'll be, I'm sure, lots of opportunities for bilateral discussions, independent discussions. I think though also, what turned out to be a surprise to me in the last two Fyuz events was just the interest in policymakers and regulators and trying to understand how fast this was advancing. There seems to be an almost universal view amongst them across the world, and that was surprising to me. We kind of get inundated by what we experience in the U.S., but it was interesting to hear the perspectives of regulators in India or in Europe, in the UK, or otherwise to say, okay, why is this important to them? What is interesting to them about telco and the telco industry? Why are they making specific investments? What do they see as both the opportunities and the challenges? And so for them, I think it's about a healthy supply chain, a diverse or resilient supply chain for telco gear, but also lots of opportunities for innovation and bringing new partners in and trying to leverage what we have in the network, as well as moving forward with network innovation involving the largest possible base of ecosystem providers that could come from non-traditional sources, not just from 1 or 2 or 3 regions in the world. Instead, now empowering and democratizing the ability for somebody to contribute. I think previously the mission and vision of TIP was often viewed as democratizing the ability to make gear. For me, it's about now democratizing the ability to gain access to create innovation opportunities in the network. It's a subtle difference, but it really that we're not necessarily looking for to tip the apple cart and say, okay, we suddenly have 10 new infrastructure providers, but instead we'd love to see 20 new or 30 new application providers that can help the infrastructure providers squeeze the maximum amount out of the network. Because admittedly, the resources that operators used to have to put to bear on this problem are significantly less. It's not just us, it's others to try to solve this problem. So we know that the opportunities will come largely with open interfaces, standardized APIs, standardized direction on how you can actually optimize and automate the network and finally monetize it. So for me, that's really the opportunity. And as we continue to drive forward, I think this is where the excitement is, that bring in these new entrants, bring in these startups who have new ideas about how to automatically generate code or automatically create an application suite that's useful for us, that finally helps us consume more complexity in the network. Because unfortunately, as much as we try to drive complexity in the opposite direction, it always seems like the network's just increasingly more complex.
Yeah, no, it's a never-ending battle, I would guess. But you summarized very well what is potentially the outcome and the benefit of being together in a community, in a fairly compact event where everybody is kind of talking about similar type of challenges, topics. And a lot of people actually know each other, but now have a chance to come together and network and try to discuss it. And yes, we will also have a policy roundtable policy track in this year's Fyuz, which is kind of important, like you rightly said, to make sure we capture the broader global trends and also help our decision makers to be aware of where the industry is going. And of course, there will be other constituents. There will be hopefully startups, developers, as well as the traditional usual players that we always have. So with that said, as we are running out of time, I would very much like to thank you for sharing your thoughts on the industry, on TIP, on Fyuz 25, and we are looking forward to meeting you, Rob, together with your colleagues and many other colleagues, many of you hopefully, as well as all the connections we have on LinkedIn, to be with us in November in Dublin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It was a great chat.